So, we have got a lot of characters in this game that have Zeta abilities, but we also have a good handful of characters that have still not received the Zeta love. And in this video, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 characters in this game that don't have a single Zeta ability on them. Let's go! Starting with the number 10 character that is completely Zeta-less, we have got Poe Dameron. Now, Poe is obviously going to be a fantastic tank when run under a Finn leadership. The reason why he's going to be super low on this list, coming in at number 10, he's still on the list, is just because the Finn leadership doesn't have as much practical use anymore, especially in the arena. You're going to have a really hard time finding much use for Poe in the arena anymore. However, if you're running a Finn Zeta leadership in territory wars or territory battles, you can still find quite a bit of use for Poe. He's going to taunt and add and expose when he taunts, which is super valuable because you're going to be able to use that to play into that Finn Zeta leadership, where every time you hit an exposed enemy, you're going to gain turn meter, you're going to have cooldowns reset, and all of that jazz. And so Poe, very, very useful. Not so much in arena anymore, but he still absolutely has a place, especially, I would say, in territory battles and sometimes territory wars, depending on who you're going up against, and somehow doesn't have a Zeta ability whatsoever. Coming in at number 9, we have got Admiral ACKBAR, who I wish had more love in the meta. He's kind of had a niche place in anti-meta teams here and there because of his unique ability, or his leadership ability with Rebels, which is very, very solid. Look at this. Rebel allies have plus 25 speed. First of all, 25 speed. Who doesn't want to add 25 speed to their entire team? In this case, just Rebels. They're going to gain 10% tenacity, but this is what really makes this his ability super fun. It's not, I mean, it's not just useful, it's fun. In addition, whenever an ally uses an ability that isn't an attack, they call a Rebel ally to assist. And so picture this, you've got ACKBAR, you've got Commander Luke Skywalker, you've got Thrawn, Hermit Yoda on the same team. Think about all of those abilities that are passive abilities, such as Thrawn, give Grand Admiral's command, Commander Luke Skywalker using call to action, Hermit Yoda using virtually anything. You're going to have bonus attacks every time those characters use those abilities, and with Commander Luke Skywalker on the team, you're going to have a really high chance of him countering, maybe throw Han in there. Admiral ACKBAR is obviously going to maybe hit, and he hits for low DPS, but if you've got, say, Commander Luke and Han in there, then there's going to be a lot of potential for a lot of bonus attacks that are hitting for pretty high DPS. Really fun to use. Probably not going to have a super solid place in the meta anymore, but I would say he fits really well on teams that if you're just crafting something you want to run for fun, really, really fun character to use. Coming in at number 8, we have got Baze Malbus. And Baze, I mean, obviously, we used to have a full meta that was just the Chase meta. Chirrut and Baze, very, very solid duo. Baze himself is going to work standalone, and people are still finding niche uses for Baze. He's not meta. A lot of these characters won't be without the Zeta abilities, but he still has a very, very tactical kit that is going to be useful in many areas of the game, especially, I would say, in a territory battle situation or in territory wars. But his unique ability is what, in my opinion, really makes him useful. It's his first unique ability, and he gains that taunt at the beginning of each encounter. But what's really notable is that he gains 5% turn meter whenever an enemy gains a buff. We've got a lot of buff-heavy teams out there, especially with these new Jedi reworks going on, or just the Grandmaster Yoda rework. We're not getting full Jedi reworks. Sad face. But anyway, he is going to gain a lot of turn meter. So this is one of the few characters in the game that you really don't even need to mod for speed, which is really useful because those speed secondary mods are so valuable. You don't necessarily need as many of those on Baze. I mean, it's still nice to have speed on anybody. You want anybody taking as many turns as possible. But for Baze, because there are so many buffs that go on, 5% turn meter, you're going to have a lot of turns by Baze, just based on how many buffs the other team are gaining. So Baze coming in at number 8. Our number 7 character is going to be Night Sister Zombie. Night Sister Zombie speaks for herself. Endless Horde is a pain in the butt to go against. In a Night Sister team, you are not going to be able to kill Night Sister Zombie ever unless you have every single other Night Sister dead. She has to be killed last unless there are characters on the team that are Night Sisters. You just have to make sure all those Night Sisters are cleared. Really pretty much speaks for itself. It's very useful, especially with Asajj, because Asajj will gain offense every time an enemy dies. So the more zombie dies, the better it's going to be for your team as a whole. I think Night Sister Zombie is the only character in this history of Galaxy Heroes where it was a mistake to gear her up, because when you run her with Asajj, you want her dying as much as possible. If you run what they call a paper zombie, then you die and you die and you die and you die, and every time Asajj is gaining stacking offense, she can hit you with an AoE and then just completely destroy your team. Very solid in at number 7, Night Sister Zombie. Our number 6 character is SHORETROOPER, and when SHORETROOPER hit, let me tell you, this really changed the meta. This was our first auto taunter who was taunting at the beginning of the encounter. It was very, very tricky to go against. It was a very, very good counter to so many things in that time. It was also our first character that came from squad tournaments back in the day. Whoever remembers that, let me know down in the comments. Those were fun times with squad tournaments. But anyway, SHORETROOPER is still really valuable. He's going to be an asset to any Empire team, and his ability regroup, in my opinion, is what makes him super, super good. He's going to give health 20. Let's see, all allies recover health equal to 24% of SHORETROOPER's max health. That's pretty solid, especially because of how tanky he is. They gain critical hit immunity for 2 turns. SHORETROOPER gains taunt for 2 turns, and whenever SHORETROOPER loses a buff, reduce the ability or the cooldown of this ability by 1. So SHORETROOPER is going to be really solid. He's not just going to absorb those hits. He's going to be able to recover that health. He's going to be able to heal the rest of the team as well. One of the best tanks in the game, in my opinion, and one of those characters that I actually don't have geared up that I wish I did. And he does it without a single Zeta ability. Our number 5 character without a Zeta is First Order Executioner. Now, I'm actually pretty surprised that First Order Executioner doesn't have a Zeta, not just because of how good Executioner is, but also because it's one of the new characters. It's kind of rare to see a new character come out without a Zeta ability, but he doesn't have one. Death Sentence, in my opinion, is what makes Executioner so good. He's going to deal damage to target enemy, remove 50% turn meter, dispel all buffs on them, and if the attack defeats an enemy, the First Order Executioner gains 80% turn meter, and the cooldown of that ability is reset, and it hits like a truck because of Total Order, his unique ability. Whenever First Order Executioner scores a critical hit, he gains 10% max health stacking until the end of the encounter, and First Order allies gain 10% turn meter. First Order Executioner has bonus offense equal to 5% of his max health. So the tankier he gets, the harder he will hit. So towards the end of the battle, he can just completely obliterate your opponents, and he works in a First Order team against the meta. Very, very solid First Order Executioner. One of those characters, in my opinion, that's going to be a must for many squads. Our number 4 character on the list is going to be Resistance Trooper. Now, Resistance Trooper, yes, not so much a place in the current meta, especially because on defense, he's not super threatening to you. However, look at what he's able to do in raids. He's very, very important to a JTR squad in the Heroic Sith Raid Phase 1, and he's going to work very well and also in territory battles, territory wars. What I love about Resistance Trooper is he is, like Baze, one of the only characters in the game that you really just don't need to mod for speed. And this is because his unique ability, Guerrilla Tactics, gives him 55% turn meter whenever an enemy without exposed gains exposed. 55%. That is a ton of turn meter, and you really don't need to mod him for speed as a result of it if you're running him in a team that applies frequent exposes. He's going to take a lot of turns, and he hits really hard. So you can cast those speed mods aside, load him up with critical damage and offense mods, and hit like a truck with Resistance Trooper, especially in Phase 1 of the Heroic Sith Raid. Number 3 on our list is going to be General Kenobi. Now, it seems kind of low on the list. However, bear with me here. General Kenobi, in my opinion, is falling out of favor. Now, that could dramatically shift depending on what happens with the Jedi in the future. But for now, his use seems to be going down. That said, I mean, he's still number 3. That's still pretty high on the list. What makes General Kenobi so good? He is so incredibly tanky. You can get your General Kenobi's protection well up into the 80,000-90,000 range. He's going to not hit super hard, but he can call a full team assist as long as everybody has a buff on the team, and he's going to be able to have a cleanse and apply retribution up. What, in my opinion, what makes him less useful now is he's going to be taunting whenever somebody gets critically hit on your team. However, the meta right now is Traya, and when you're going against Traya, because he's going to be taunting very early in the battle, he's almost always going to get isolated, which renders him a lot more useless than he would be otherwise, because he's not going to be able to cleanse, he's not going to be able to give you any of that retribution up, and he's not going to be able to call the mass assist. So he just becomes a character that hits not super hard on his basic, that is going to be sitting there dead in the water until he's killed. That, in my opinion, has really crippled the use of General Kenobi. But anyway, he is still very, very good. Still number 3 on the list. He's going to have tremendous use in other game modes. And maybe depending on what new Jedi we may get, he could have more use in the future. But for now, his use seems to be falling out of favor just a bit. Number 2 on the list is SITH-TROOPER. SITH-TROOPER can really give me headaches. And this is because of his unique ability, which gives him 100% defense. He's not just tanky. No, he is tanky. But it's not just about that. It's also about that plus 100% defense. And his taunt is really hard to stop. So it's going to be really hard to avoid attacking him unless you're able to put buff immunity on him. Which usually, because he's going to be ran with Scion, you're going to have bouncing taunts between SITH-TROOPER and Scion, which can be just a real pain in the just so hard to handle. So here's where that taunt comes from. In that unique ability, it says whenever a Sith ally uses a special ability or falls below 50% health, SITH-TROOPER gains defense up for 2 turns. So he doesn't just have 100% defense, he's also going to gain the defense up buff. And then when he already had the defense up buff, he's going to taunt. And then when he already taunted, he's going to gain retribution up for 2 turns. Very, very solid, hard to burn through, very tanky defensive character that punishes you when you are going against the Sith. Very solid, and he does it without a single Zeta ability, my friends. And then finally, our number 1 character without a Zeta ability, I am sure you've guessed it by now, is Captain Rex. I really don't think anyone else can take a spot on this list. Look, Rex is comfortably the most versatile leader we have had in the history of this game, and he has done it and survived for 2 years now. He has never not been relevant since he came out. Now, that said, in fairness, I wouldn't say he hasn't had a turn in the meta recently. He did have a turn at one point, but he is not necessarily meta right now. He's very anti-meta, but people are still finding some really, really annoying uses for Rex. And of course, if you guys know anything about Rex, this is from his leadership ability, which gifts 7.5% turn meter to everybody on your team whenever somebody suffers a critical hit. It's a lot of turn meter over time, especially because we got a lot of critically hit heavy teams. It can really punish those critical hits and give you turn meter, and your team becomes faster and faster and faster the more that they get critically hit. Very, very solid, and in my opinion, the clear-cut number 1 character that does not have a Zeta ability. And I really hope he never gets one, because, goodness, we really can't make Rex any more OP than he already is, please. Alright, my friends, what did you think about my list? Are there any characters I missed? Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please go ahead and do so. I'd love to have you on for future videos. And as always, my brothers, don't forget.
My dead body. Sorry about the mess.